All right, thank you. So we have a number of working groups within the foundation, our user interface working group. We'll hear about ontology, next, ETL, and others. Um, I think we have a brand new ITB2 website. Somewhere on that website, we have the information about the working groups. We got to figure out exactly where that is. We usually meet, the user interface usually meets on the third Wednesdays of the month at noon, and we'll get that information out to you. I like the user interface working group because we get to look at pretty pictures. It's always kind of fun after we've spent lots of time focusing on the data and mapping. So it's a nice kind of break. And for my disclosures, there are a few different topics I want to talk about today. The first are new interactive data visualizations. So this is a major revamping of how query results and breakdowns are displayed in the user interface. This was driven by the mass CPR data network that we talked about yesterday. The epidemiologists, researchers, public health groups that are planning to use the network have lots of different types of reporting, spatial temporal analyses that they need, and we didn't have that capability in I2B2 before. So in 1.8.3, we restructured how results are displayed and made it modular so that we could build different types of visualizations, new types of breakdowns, and plug them in. So for example, on the left, this is how breakdowns looked like before. Everything is just a bar chart, but now it's swapped out so that for each type of breakdown that comes back, you can have a library of different visualizations that are paired to it. So for example, you can click this button in the upper right corner of the visualization and flip from a bar chart to a pie chart, or a view is just a table of the raw data. A breakdown could be a file download, so you can download this as a CSV file, or however else you want to create. You can build out your own visualizations, create your own custom breakdowns on the back end, and create new ways of displaying results. I'll show you some examples of that. So one of the things we did for the... Oh, I wasn't really pointing at anything. I wasn't pointing at anything. All right. I'll, if I have to point, I'll point like that. All right. So one of the things we did is an NIH enrollment table. So this is displaying race, ethnicity, and sex in a particular format that the NIH likes for clinical trial enrollment. If you click the button in the upper right and switch to the raw data view, you'll see on the right, it's not very human readable. It's a bunch of codes that are coming back. And that's important with the new breakdowns. The new breakdowns, the results that are coming back doesn't have to be really human readable. It can just be kind of data that's paired with the visualization. So here it's codes that the visualization parses and puts the values in the correct spot. The codes can just be binary information for an image or anything that comes back. And I'll show you some sort of extreme ways that we used it in the mass CPR network. But that's kind of the point here is you're not limited to a readable traditional breakdown that's paired with a bar chart. Think about breakdowns as just ways of generating data from a cohort and paired with different ways of displaying it. So you can create download files. So for like for bar chart, the CSV download is just like the age categories and the numbers. For the NIH enrollment table, the CSV download actually creates like a grid. So for each visualization, you can have some kind of custom download type that's unique to that visualization. We haven't really explored that, but I can imagine instead of CSV, you could download, you can define it as XML or JSON or anything. I know. Yep. So the answer is we have not built these where you can create your own new data. The data is coming from the server as a breakdown object.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just that if you download from that upper right button, you said the like code that is behind that table that it's above,
Yes.
and you reload that object to an I2B2 UI that then brings you right back to that table view.
We have not built any visualizations that would have an upload feature. What I can imagine you doing is, if you had some blob like that, you put it in the Qt query result table inside of I2B2 and it would come in from the server, or you would build like the enrollment table one is uploading it. This is not, we didn't meant this to be, uh, I'm saying we've not created anything that does that, but the modular plugins allow you to build any kind of visualization you want. So you could potentially have an upload there, but I'm not sure this would be the right place for that, because these are visualizations that are paired to the query that you defined. So like if I
It saves your cookie trail of whatever got you to that visualization. And so that it saves your work that got you to here, and then you
it's
just
in your
shove.
previous queries. So in
Okay.
your previous queries, it defined the query that you made to choose the cohort, and then it states you created an enrollment table for it. And you can just drag that to reload it. You don't have to rerun the query, just like any other previous breakdown. During the break, I'll walk through and show you how that works.
So a year later, I'm going to take this exact same query and then drop it on the UI and get an updated table output from it.
Once you run a query for a cohort, that data is saved in the kind of Qt tables in the CRC cell, along with all the data that's needed to generate that enrollment table. So you can just come back at any time, view the query you did, and pull back that enrollment table back up. Yeah. Yeah, I have actually a short time for, yeah, we want to give Michelle enough time. All right, so there are several of these visualizations that come by default in 1.8.3. So the age breakdown, we have line graphs, pie charts, and the enrollment table. There are several other breakdowns where the visualization code comes with the I2B2 web client, but we don't have by default the breakdowns set up that are paired with those visualizations. So for example, we have a map view that shows where patients are located. You need to have what's called a GeoJSON file that has the zip code or regions of where your patients are located. So we have like a folder that has zip codes for across the United States, but you got to do some configuring on the back end to get it to set up right. So it's a bit much for a new institution that hasn't used I2B2 before to get all those things put together. So we need these optional and have some documentation on them. So the table bar chart, map view, the pathogen timelines that I demoed yesterday with Mass CPR are in the code, but they're not going to be visible when you do a default I2B2 download. If you're interested in using these, let us know, and we'll kind of walk you through the process of modifying the config files to enable them. All right, next topic is custom color themes and branding. So as you know, there was a big shift in I2B2 1.7 and 1.8, and the 1.8 was driven on changes we made to the user interface for the ACT or ENACT network. And the Shrine UI for ACT and ENACT was meant to both make it more modern look and feel, as well as to make it designed for what we call a novice user. So we want to make it seem really easy to use for people. We added focus groups, usability studies, Anupama led a lot of that, and we came up with that design on the right for Shrine. People really liked it, so we brought it back into I2B2 1.8. These are really bright and bold colors. I call it like the Candy Crush colors, like on my kid's iPad. And in some ways that's good. So like when I'm promoting I2B2 at my institution, we have a lot of other tools, Epic tools, data warehouses. They're pretty complex and have steep learning curves. So I kind of market I2B2 as the easy alternative, where it's minimal training, you can just jump right on and use it. So this sort of bright, bold colors sort of fits in really well with that. And it allows me to explain this as kind of an easy tool to use. It's as easy as like a game on your iPad. So from that perspective, I like that UI, and it fits in well with the audience I'm marketing to there. But when I'm talking about computed phenotypes and rolling out the mass CPR network to public health agencies, there are very sophisticated users who are using those tools. And I worry a little bit about how this novice UI might sort of send the wrong impression if it's looking so different than the tools they're used to. And these are some examples of the tools they use: RStudio, MATLAB, SAS. These all kind of have this same style. It's a gray boxes with a blue header, and there's a lot of dense data on there. They get as much information as you can. Colors are really saved for the visualizations and not so much for the pieces where you're developing the queries and running code. When I look at Trinetics and OMOP tools, this thing I like to call the hospital blue. Everybody likes to use the same blue color for like hospital, medical, serious patient care type things. And this is a very different look and feel from what we have in I2B2 today. One of the things we did for 1.8.3 and for Mass CPR is Nick Bennick took all the different places in the code where we have style sheets and UI customizations and pulled that all into one config file. So now it's really easy to swap out the default colors with different color themes. So we just started playing with that, and I want to show you a couple alternatives that we looked at and get your thoughts on them to see if we can make I2B2 look less like a novice user's tool and something more like an advanced data science user's tool. So first thing, like the bright blue header at the top, kind of darkening that up and putting the hospital blue up there, and maybe some of those bright oranges and things, reducing that. And we get something like this. Again, this is just swapping out some things in that one config file, and this looks like a very different kind of program now, even though it's the exact same tool. I start adding in some of the mass CPR data analysis things, and this is really starting to look more like those R MATLAB type programs I was showing before. And when I put them side by side, you can see quite a bit of difference over here. And now it's looking really like a scientific tool when I start really bringing in all these new breakdowns, interactive visualizations, and this different look and feel. So we may actually use this for some different applications. One of the kind of fun things we're thinking about is I2B2 could be very useful for OMOP sites as well. And a number of sites with OMOP are using I2B2. I2B2 provides a simple user interface, real-time federated queries, computed phenotypes. But I think a lot of OMOP sites are not aware of I2B2 or don't really see it as a tool that fits in on top of their OMOP. So Aaron Abin, I don't think he's here again today, but he encouraged us to see if we can put, using our new color swapping things inside of I2B2, can we make a theme for I2B2 that looks like an Odyssey, OMOP Odyssey tool? So we swapped out I2B2 with Argos to make it like a Greek name like all the other OMOP tools. We use that data science blue color to match up with Atlas and some of the other tools that they have. And this looks much more like something that would be part of their community. They have actually their annual symposium in October. We submitted a couple abstracts, kind of branded as Argos. There's this new Argos tool for Odyssey that does real-time queries across federated networks. And we created a computed phenotype thing for Odyssey. We're going to see if maybe Argos gets better uptake within that community than I2B2. We want to let you all know, so if leadership at your site tells you, we heard about this great Argos tool we want you to explore, you can say, I'm on it right now, and swap out the your config file instead of I2B2. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, and the new colors, the bright bold colors we have in I2B2, this kind of branding for maybe Odyssey community or for Mass CPR network. A kind of main question is, they said that these bright colors in I2B2 today worked well for me at Beth Israel, but like I know for Sean, he's used this in different kind of settings for pharma, and he's changed the colors to make it more branded for Mass General, look that kind of more serious or scientific. I want to get your experiences with the, was it? Yes, what do you think about the left and the right, and does it really make a difference? One of the things I'm not addressing here is in the user interface committee meetings, there are lots of other things we can do to improve the UI. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm just talking about here colors and sizes of things and how that makes the experience of using ITB2.
Okay, so I think that it's a brilliant idea to get domain-specific branding and coloring patterns. I think if you did that in a single UI to control that and then save that as your style sheet that you can propagate into your system, that's fantastic. Just one quick thing on when you go to take this, try and get a whole document represented out of this, any interface that has that kind of a skin, anytime you use black box and white font color, it's problematic for PDFs and things like that. And so I would deeply avoid white font things because it's just not compatible across.
You mean on the top over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
No white font ever. And then some control over the kind of a PDF generator that would, from any place you're looking at.
Right. We have on query results. I didn't show it here, but there's a print button that creates a report that was completely revamped as well, and that looks very different from the UI. That's a white background. It's meant to be printed and sort of attached to an IRB protocol or handed to others, and that has its own kind of styling.
It's just this any savable output that somebody's going to propagate on to people who don't want to ever do anything through a web thing, that they just want to see the document,
right?
Make it clean. And then also that's true for reading it in some apps too.
Mm-hmm. Good point.
And then, yeah, place for pictures too of their logos. Yeah, one of the things, this is a more also kind of a political sell job thing issue of which I think is you're very right to address that. What do people say that, oh, that's Harvard, really, that's just Harvard. We would never use something that's a forced Harvard thing. What do you say to that?
I don't look at all the people here. I see a pit to the ontology and
I know that.
Others.
I'm here from Cincinnati Children's,
Yeah.
and I'm totally with you. But it's not everybody has that same take on stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's the foundation tries to help that, but there's always going to be that attachment to where things originated. Odyssey is kind of always attached to Columbia. Trinetics is Matthew. So it's hard to break away from
PedsNet to CHOP. That's bad for us.
Yeah.
And then also the epic harmonization. What about people who say, oh, slicer dicers, what all I need?
Some organizations, they love one particular thing, and they're focused on that. Others view all these as complementary tools and are open to using them for their unique areas. A lot of it, I think, comes from your background and what you were taught or trained on.
N3C. I mean, being in the enclave, I liked what I was hearing about. How do we get connectivity and, all teams welcome here?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a dark mode? Just curious.
A what?
A dark mode?
Dark mode. I showed you a couple things here. We came up with a whole bunch of crazy designs. Some of them we knew would look bad, but just trying to see things as contrasts. After what we just heard, maybe dark mode is not good for printing, but yeah, we can play around with some different options. I don't know. So the overall shape of it is based on this framework called Golden Layout. So it's easy for us to swap out colors. I'm not sure if how well this would work on a mobile device. You also have to think who's kind of using this. If I create this system called Profiles, where you look up a person and get their contact information, and that people are just doing that on the phone all the time. If you're doing this to really refine your cohorts and extract medical record numbers and things, I don't know if people are doing that on their phones or if they're more doing that on the workstations. I never know. It's hard to tell on that. That's a good point. I don't think we've really explored this much on mobile devices. Yes.
Hey, so I had two questions. One's a kind of a layout question, which is, this all seems to be captive within one window, as opposed to being able to like undock the windows and run multiple monitors and things like that in the same interactive environment. Have you thought making the interface be a little bit less constrained to one window?
The framework actually supports that. We've disabled certain features because there's some weird behaviors, I think, when things pop out into new windows. Nick, do you want to say anything about that? About would this work if the modules popped out? Yes, it's technically possible to do. There just may be some weird syncing things that happen.
Yeah, so you're actually capable through the framework of doing pop-outs and floating windows. You have a little bit of a issue with regards to plugins because when you pop out a plugin, it actually destroys the plugin and then it recreates a new version. So if you have context in your local window and you haven't used some special advanced functions that the plugin environment supports, then whatever was done in that one window, that one frame, when you pop it out, it's like you just reloaded the plugin.
Yeah, so we actually, the framework has a bunch of configurations in it. We turned off the pop-out button because it breaks certain things and we thought it would confuse users on that. But, if you're a power user and you have your own version of it, you could enable that, and with the knowledge that when it pops out, it loses the state and you have to kind of go back and load everything.
Right. And the other one's a little bit less of a pure UI thing, but one of the things that's different about the Python and the Jupyter notebooks and the R environments you showed was there's code there. Have you thought about either allowing a plugin that runs a Jupyter Notebook or R inside of I2B2, or the reverse, build a module that lets you basically refresh your data set directly rather than having to download and reload?
One of the I2B2 constrains what kind of queries you can run, and this allows us to be very explicit with the IRB of what people can do and can't do. It allows us to give people access to the system without additional protocols on top of it. The enclave pieces we talked about before is kind of how we handle that. If you have access to patient-level data, we can extract that data, put it in an enclave where you have Jupyter Notebooks in R, and you can do all those analyses. We wouldn't want to allow people to inject R scripts or SQL directly through the UI because that would create potential security risks, and we wouldn't be able to open it up the way we do it today.
Create a series of APIs that you could call from something like a Jupyter Notebook. And because then you could still control it based on their role, because you'll know that they're like LDS or whatever,
Right.
whether or not they can call those methods. I mean, that might be a cool
So I2B2 has APIs. Paul Avalock did this 10 years ago. He created something called Picture,
right?
which is exactly that. And then it kind of forked off and became its own thing. But that was the intent of that whole grant, was to make a a more streamlined RESTful API for I2B2 where you can do exactly that by calling it from Jupyter Notebooks. But
It might be a nice time to revisit it since you
Yeah.
have this more expressive plugin stuff going on now. Might be
yeah,
a good time to
I
bring it
think
back.
the other area I think we're more focused on these days is rather than submitting code, putting plain text and having LLMs convert these into either I2B2 queries or queries that can be run on the database. That's kind of the alternative for this. It would have been great if a picture ran initially on I2B2. Now it runs on its own sort of custom
PDF.
databases, right? But there's limited funding to do everything.
He knows HPDS is their database.
All's your database?
Yeah.
Yeah.
High performance data store.
It's like a column store kind of, it's optimized for large genomic data.
Like a
So it's sort of. It's very scalable. It has limitations, but well, yeah. I do want to get to
S3 buckets or the like.
I haven't looked at picture for many years, so I don't know what the state of it is today. I know the NHLBI, their biodata catalyst system that has massive cohorts, hundreds of thousands that's all running on picture. So it's hugely scalable, runs in AWS, has a lot of nice functionality to it. It's really built for security, genomics, scalability. There's things in I2B2 though, the more complex user interfaces, plugins, repeated phenotypes. So they're solving, again, back to the question before about how there are all these different complementary tools and, pictures for certain types of applications. A couple of things we're working on this year. Revamping modifiers. Modifiers has always been tricky inside of I2B2. If you want to have a medication and be able to describe its dose or its frequency, you have to build out these same instance queries. We're working on making it more like a laboratory test result where you right-click the medication and then you have a list of options that are available and just pull it all together in one place. So this is, I think for OMOP users, this will also work really well. The old modifier way, this was really designed for that one big skinny observation fact table where you have the modifiers on different rows. But in OMOP tables, there are multiple columns and you want to be able to query different columns, and querying them like laboratory test values, other values in different columns. It allows I2B2 to even fit sort of more naturally on top of an OMOP table rather than having to do views on top of OMOP that make an OMOP table look more like an I2B2 fact table. Then also term info enhancements. Term info today is really more designed for the administrators, power users, giving the SQL, the concept paths. For investigators, they more want notes on the ontology, graphs showing the breakdowns by years. For computed phenotypes, links to more information about that. The MDB Biobank niche has done a lot of work in developing something that looks a lot like this. We want to be able to pull some of that out, put it into the open source, working with Michelle and other ontology people to figure out the right way of doing this. I think those two areas, the modifiers and term info enhancements, are going to be an important new feature that we have this year that parallels the revamping of the query results and breakdowns that we did the past year for MassCPR. So that's all I had. Any final thoughts before we switch over? Join our user group. We don't see a lot of you these days. It used to be quite big, and it was really helpful getting the thoughts. You heard a lot of comments here today. This is the user interface groups helps to figure out what these things are going to look like and what functionality is going to be there. So it's great to hear your input and what input your investigators are sharing with you and bringing it back to us. Thank you.